Hello there, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here. So I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit different than what I normally focus on in my channel. Obviously, my moniker is the Garden Witch. I do focus on magical gardening, witchcraft related gardening, things that you can do in your garden. I mean, gardening is the heart of my channel. And for me, I feel it's the most reliable way to sort of attune with these magical plants, as well as just having resources for the magical workings that I do related to plants, building that relationship with the earth. But I recognize that not everyone has the space that they can do gardening. So that is actually what I wanted to talk about today, is basically how can you do those things if you don't have a garden? So there are ways that you can go out and visit wild places, or wild places in some cases, and look for plants and build a relationship with the plants in those places. And I actually, although I have a garden that I can do that in, I still also do that as well. In particular, there's one particular park that I go to that is sort of the antithesis to my garden, has a completely different ecosystem to my garden, and has a completely different type of energy and plants that grow in that ecosystem, that sort of gives me the best of both worlds. So the park in particular, like whereas my yard is very dry and open and sunny, this park is wooded and shady and actually has a man-made lake and a creek running through it. So it's very wet ground. You get a lot of shady wetland plants there that will not grow at all in my garden. So it's nice to have that place to be able to go there, interact with those plants, feel that very different sort of energy than what I have around me normally. So this is something that you can do as well. Even if you just don't have a garden at all, you can find some place near you that allows you to sort of interact with the green world in that way. Now, I recommend just finding one particular place, and it's fine, like if you are kind of new to an area, or you're new to this practice, to kind of go and visit several different places and do sort of a survey of what's around you, and figure out what the different environments around you are like, whether they be parks or other wild places. But I recommend, just after you've done that, picking just one specific place that you want to revisit again and again and again throughout the year. That way you can see how, as the seasons change, as the area goes through the different seasons on the wheel of the year, you can see how the land itself and the plants that grow on that land change and alter themselves according to the time of year. And going through that full cycle of the wheel of the year in one place really gives you a better idea of what the big picture of that energy signature of that place is. It helps if you're just going to one particular place, you sort of build up a relationship with the spirit of that place as well. What the Romans would call the genius loci. And then through that relationship, you can have a connection with that place. Now, of course, if you are planning on going there over and over and over again and interacting with the spirits of that place, it never hurts to bring some sort of offering. It does not need to be anything fancy. A lot of the time I'll just bring a little bit of water, especially like if it's water that I've blessed or, energized in some way, like moon water or something like that is a perfect offering, because it's something that will help the area and sort of share some of your energy with the place without being environmentally destructive. There are some people who advocate using tobacco as an offering, which, although it's fine in that it's not necessarily environmentally destructive, it does have a lot of cultural appropriation along with it, because of course tobacco is a sacred religious plant for many of the native tribes here in the United States, and so I don't like to do that. But water is perfectly fine, especially if it's moon water or blessed water in some way. Now, other things that you want to bring when you're going out. you need a good field guide. This is one that I have. This is the Peterson Field Guides for Edible Wild Plants. So basically this is telling me the things that are actually safe. And specifically it's for my region, which is Eastern Central North America. So you need a field guide for your region that will tell you about the plants specific to your region. I actually recommend having more than one, so you can cross-check them. So in addition to the Peterson Field Guide, I also have an app on my phone, which is the one that I use is the Picture This app. It is free. It does have a premium service that it likes to advertise for me all the time. It throws ads in there as well. I don't pay for the premium service. I don't use it often enough to feel like it's worthwhile. So I just deal with the annoyance of the ads that pop up. But that's just the one that I use. There's a multitude of other apps that you can use that also help with plant identification as well. So I use both my phone and the field guide and sort of cross-reference to give myself a better idea, making sure that what I think I'm looking at, there's a reasonable certainty that it is that. Because sometimes I do encounter plants that I'm not 100% sure what they are. And sometimes it's really obvious what they are. There'll be some really distinctive characteristic where it can't be anything else at all. But other times it's kind of muddy, you know, particularly like some of the things like in the viburnum species. It is freaking impossible to identify a specific viburnum because there's so many of them and they all look so similar. So, you know, always use caution. You know, just remember that if you don't have an expert guide who can tell you specifically, oh yes, I know this plant and I know for a fact that it's this, like you can't really be 100% sure that it is what you think it is. So, segueing into that, that means don't eat anything unless you know what it is. Especially when we're talking about things like the mycelium, the fungi. Don't eat them. Just don't. Unless you have a guide there to tell you for sure, yes, that is safe, don't do it. And even then, like, they can be wrong sometimes. So, yeah, I do not recommend eating anything that you forage for. Unless, again, you are like 1,000% certain that you know what it is and you know that it's safe. On top of that, you want to know what the environment that you're harvesting things from is like. Because sometimes, like, you know, harvesting from a roadside, those things are constantly being coated by all of the crap that's being spewed out of the tailpipes of cars as they drive by. So, like, you know, unless you know the environment around that plant is also not contaminated by anything. There could be something in the ground that you don't know about. Maybe this was previously a, you know, a dump site, and you don't know about it, and now it's a forest. Well, there could be something in the soil that those plants are picking up that you might not even know about that can make you sick. So again, unless you know the environment, you know the plant 1,000%, don't ingest anything that you're finding out in the wild. It's fine to use it for spell work, but don't eat it unless you can be beyond certain that you know it's safe. So finally, of course, you know, safety first, safety always. When you're going out there, make sure you're dressed appropriately. I'm going to be wearing this. It's not exactly appropriate for what I'm doing, but I'm also not planning on going off the trails today. Normally when I would go out there with the specific intent to forage, I would not wear a dress like this. I would wear long sleeve shirt, long pants, closed toe shoes, always wear closed toe shoes. Something to protect yourself from the sun. So if you're not wearing long sleeves, wear sunscreen. Definitely bug spray of some sort, because mosquitoes and ticks are a thing. You don't want to be bitten by those. But also out here in the South, sometimes we have chiggers, which are, ooh, yeah. So definitely do that. And then of course, you know, make sure you know where you are. Don't just wander around and get lost. Have some way to find yourself. Watch for poison ivy. That's another thing too. Watch for those plants that can hurt you as well. So now if you do plan on collecting material from your area that you are going to, first off, you want to check your local laws. Make sure, know what the area is as far as what its legal status is and what the laws are for your area for collecting material in that area. So, for example, the place that I am going to is a local park. It is run by the local county, and the laws prevent us from collecting any sort of material in the park boundaries itself. The place that I go is actually just outside of the park boundaries. There's actually a fence, and you can go through the fence because there is a door. And then beyond that fence is actually a floodplain area that is not owned by the park system, and it's just uncultivated wild land that doesn't have any clear ownership. And there are a number of sort of homegrown trails that generations of wandering kids have carved through these woods. That's where I usually do my actual foraging and harvesting, is in that area there, because it's not illegal to do so in that area, but in the park itself it is. So I will show you in the second half of this video, I will show you the area of the park, because it's easier to spot the plants there because the paths are very wide and it's a very open area and it's easy to access, unlike going back into the woods where I normally do my foraging. But yeah, always check to see what the legality is. Generally, if it's some kind of park, whether it be a county, state, or federal park, any kind of foraging or gathering of material is going to be prohibited. So just keep that in mind. When you're going out to forage, you want to make sure you have some supplies to do that. So I always bring my little pocket knife, which is actually my bowline. This is a hawksbill knife, of course, and it has that blade shape is good for both cutting, carving, and, you know, just also, you know, cutting through woodier stems as well. So I do bring this. I also bring some way to hold any material, which for me, I just use little paper lunch bags. We always have an abundance of these in the house for the times when the kids were going on a field trip and I didn't want them bringing their actual, like, reusable lunch bag. So paper lunch bags are great for not only harvesting and holding material, but also for drying plant material in, because it keeps the sun out, but also doesn't keep the moisture in, so the material in there isn't going to, like, get all mushy and moldy while it's in there. And then of course you want to have, you know, paper bags are also excellent because you can just use a pencil or pen to mark what's in the bag, because you want to make sure you know and remember what it is that you've picked. And then of course finally, remember your actual etiquette for the plants themselves. So never ever ever uproot a plant to harvest its roots. If it's a wild plant, I just don't do that. It's rude. It's rude, you know. You're basically killing that plant, and, like, it's fine if I will do that sometimes in the garden, like, because I have extra plants. I have extra plants that pop up. I'm going to need to uproot them anyway because they're growing in a place I don't want them. Those plants I will harvest the roots from. When you're out in the wild, just don't do it. You're disrupting the ecosystem. If it's a plant that you normally would use the roots from, just, you know, skip it. Sorry, you know, but don't do it. It's rude. For harvesting the tops of plants, the green parts of the plants, make sure you never pick more than the top third of the plant. Again, you're giving that plant enough material left and energy left in order to be able to rejuvenate itself, so that you're not harming the environment in that way. And then of course, if you do decide to harvest seeds, make sure that at least some of those seeds that you collect, just distribute them back into the ground in the area around the plants where you found them, in order to help renew that plant and make sure that it comes back the next year. Because again, if you want to have this relationship, you need to have some respect for the plants that you find there, and allow them to thrive in their native environment. You know, don't do anything that would harm that process, is basically what it comes down to. So anyway, we're going to conclude the little indoor portion of this video, and next up I am going to drive to the park that I normally go to. It's a short drive, but it's definitely too long to walk there, unfortunately. It would take me about an hour to walk there. It takes me like 5 minutes to drive it. So So we're going to drive there, and we're going to take a look around and see what plants we find at this time of year. It's kind of an awkward time of year, being, you know, middle end of August. But there are some things that we'll definitely find there, and I can point out some of the things that definitely peek out a little bit more in the springtime as well. So anyway, that's what we're going to do next. I will see you soon. All right, folks, so here we are. This is my local park, and you can see the lake here leading to a man-made dam. This is actually the trail we're going to walk. So as I said, this is a very welcoming trail, very easy, very low danger area. If you stay on the trail, the risk of you running into poison ivy is effectively zero. But I wanted to show you here where we're starting at the trailhead. You can see lots of wooded areas, lots of trees, lots of water. We're going to actually go a little bit off the trail here. I'm going to show you one of the first plants over here, which is one that I definitely cannot grow in my yard, but is a really cool one that grows here. This little thing that grows, it's right along the water's edge right here. This is actually a very unmistakable shrub once you see the leaves on it, sort of fuzzy looking. And it makes these little cones, and more importantly, hang on, see where you can get it, where you can see it. Can you see that? Maybe if I put my hand in front of it. But it has these little cones that it makes, the fruiting bodies, which just dropped. So it hangs on to last year's ones, even as it's making the ones for the new year. This is called Brookside Alder. One of the other unmistakable things about this plant, which I'm not going to demonstrate because it's not nice to do, but when you cut open this plant, the sap is red. So this is one of the really interesting plants that I like to work with that only grows here. It definitely does not grow in my yard because it has to literally grow on the edge of the water with its roots in the water. It only likes really, really wet spots. So that's one of the plants that I like to come here and interact with. Anyway, I'm going to pause and we'll move on further down the road and see what we see. Alright, so this is one of the little side trails I like to go down. This actually leads to where there was an old Beaver Lodge. I wanted to stop though. I just saw just a second ago. Oh, there he goes. I don't know if you see him running through the shrub there. There's just a little baby toad in there. There's also, along this path, I did see some lizards just a second ago. I don't know if they'll still come out again. There's all kinds of little critters in the underbrush here. So, it smells like something is dead nearby. I don't know what that is, but anyway, this was the old Beaver Lodge. There are no beavers here. They were here for a while, but the county actually introduced otters to this pond in order to chase them out. So, because the beavers were being disruptive to the actual pond itself. So now we have otters instead, which you won't see because they usually come out at sunrise and sunset. I have a friend that comes here regularly, and he gets photos of the otters usually, but he comes like real early in the morning when the sun kind of first comes up. But I just wanted to point it out because this is a cool little area that I like to go, and I also kind of like the little view that it has here of the little island in the middle of the lake. Used to be that you could go out on that island. You can see that little berm that they have there. They have since reworked the creek a little bit, and honestly this is the first time I've been here that I have not seen that berm covered in like 6 inches of water. So the water level's pretty low right now. But anyway, one thing, is it here? Somewhere around here. I'm not seeing it. Alright. When I see it, I'll point it out. There's a specific plant that I'm looking for, but I'm not seeing it right now. So, we'll find it down the trail. Look at that little friend that I just flushed. Are you eating your snack from the side of the trail there? There he goes. Alright, well, it turns out that rabbit led me right to the plant that I was looking for before. It is this little plant right here. This is actually a rose. So So you can see it has sort of that distinctive leaf structure to it. You can see the stem has the thorns on it. In the late spring, early summer, like around May to June, this thing will be absolutely covered with little teeny tiny rose flowers. And what I am not seeing, because they have obviously recently pruned this back, unfortunately, probably because it was so close to the trail, those flowers will turn into little teeny tiny raisin-sized rose hips. So I don't see any of the hips on this plant. Again, they've probably, oh, I see some back here. I don't know if you can see them way back in there. They're like little teeny tiny things. They're really hard to make out there. But there are some little teeny tiny rose hips. In about a month or so, those hips will start turning red. And then after the first frost, they're really good for harvest. Little teeny tiny rose hips. This is actually not a native rose. This is the Japanese rose, which I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But it does grow wild here. Alright, so here we are. We're really close to that berm. One of the things that I like that grows right over here, this very unassuming looking little plant right here, has these really fleshy stems and these just kind of bland looking leaves. This is actually in the impatiens family. It is a native plant. The common name for this is jewelweed. And let's see if I can show you why. So if I take one of these little leaves here, we're going to bring it over to the water that's over here, see if I can get to the water. There we go. And you put it in the water. Oh, can I reach it? Ooh, oh, my bag's about to fall. So, the surface of the leaf actually repels the water. And if I were to put it all the way under, which I can't do because I can't reach it, it would sort of get this sort of silvery sheen of an air bubble around it that makes it look like it's a jewel. So that's where it gets the name from. Jewelweed is actually a really good natural remedy for poison ivy. Usually you just kind of like mash up the leaves into a poultice and put it on the area of the poison ivy. Look at the dragonflies. Now, one of the things you got to be careful for is that jewelweed also tends to grow in the same ground that poison ivy grows in. They have very similar growth habits. So I know earlier this year when I looked at this jewelweed patch, there was a lot of poison ivy around here. These log stumps are new, and you can see somebody's left their lures there. So, oh yeah, see, here's some right in here. See right there, that's poison ivy right there. Those 3 leaves, that's it. So that, if you've never seen poison ivy before, now you know what it looks like. At least the leaves of it. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of poison ivy growing right here, right behind where the jewelweed is growing. So that's always something to watch out for. If you find poison ivy though, or if you get hit by poison ivy, the good news is that look around and you might find some jewelweed and you might find the remedy for that poison ivy you just walked into. So yeah, this is another one of the plants I really like to come and hang out with. Oh, I cut off too soon. Hang on here. I gotta be careful because I gotta walk around the poison ivy that's in here. Here is one of the flowers of the jewelweed. This is really what's super distinctive about it. Let me see if I can get it to... It doesn't want to really focus in, but yeah, it has that really unique looking flower to it. So that's actually how I identified it the first time I knew it was jewelweed, was when I saw those flowers. Alright, so real quickly, I just wanted to show you, my phone is starting to run low on battery, so I may end up cutting this video short soon, we'll see. But this is where the path kind of continues around to a bridge that goes over the creek, but you can kind of see right through there, there is actually a fence with a gate. Beyond that gate, that fence is the boundary line for the park, and beyond that gate is basically free-for-all. That's where I normally go to do my actual foraging. And you can see there's kind of sort of a footpath that goes through there, but it's not the really wide trail like you have here in the park. Alright, well again, since I'm running low on battery, I'm just going to finish out here with this little view on the north side of the lake. It is more shady here. There are a lot of trees. You've got oak trees, you've got hickories, there's tulip poplars, there's occasionally a sassafras. I've even seen a couple of the amelanchier or service berries in here. It's not the right time of year, but there have been times when I've actually seen a lot. In the spring and in the fall, sometimes you'll see a lot of fungi. around. In fact, just on the other side of that fence there, one time I saw this massive, massive horde of hen of the woods, which unfortunately the other side of that fence is actually someone's personal property, so I didn't get a chance to harvest it, but oh my gosh, I was so tempted to steal it. But yeah, this is a really nice little park. Lots of trees, lots of different trees to commune with. This one right here is actually the favorite tree of one of my coven mates. It's a 4-trunked tulip poplar, and it is massive. Look at that thing. Alright, well I am just going to finish this out here because my little battery icon is flashing, but I did want to show you, if you can see, unfortunately it's as zoomed in as I can get, but there is the great blue heron out on that little island, and that blue heron is a regular resident of this park that I see all the time. So, hey heron, good to see you again. You can see it's a pretty sizable park, you know. Nice little lake, and the trail basically goes all the way around it. So, lots of things to explore here, lots of plants to get to know. It's just a really, really neat place to come to. So, even if I wasn't picking anything, just to come and just be with the plants and kind of learn about them in their habitat is still super worthwhile. So anyway, I'm going to cut this off here. Hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.